Hi guys, welcome to the first of many Procreate courses that I hope to be teaching in the near future. Today, to get started, we are going to be going over the basics. So this is a great place for anyone to start who has never used Procreate before. I will also be showing some little tips and tricks, so maybe you've used it before and it still has some valuable information that you can apply to your future uses. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to comment below, or if you have any requests for future videos, please comment with those as well, and I will do my best to address them. All of the videos and tutorials that I will be showing are based off of my personal experience. So they are not by any means the only way to do things. It's just how I learned how to do it and my preference for the things that I use this app for. There's endless possibilities that you can use for this app. I am only going to be teaching the things obviously that I use on a regular basis and the videos and tutorials that I have been requested to demonstrate. Now, Procreate is offered on Apple products only. So I am using an iPad. It is a 8th or 9th generation. I have had it for a little while now and I absolutely love it. I do believe there are other smaller devices that you can use. However, they have to be updated to a certain version. I am also using an Apple Pen. As you can see, you do not necessarily need an Apple Pen. You can use your finger. You can use a stylus from Amazon or Walmart, whichever one you prefer. However, there are a lot of different things that you can do with an Apple Pencil that you cannot do with anything else, and I will get into those later as well. If you're going to get into really detailed and artistic things with Procreate, I 100% recommend getting the Apple Pencil. So when you first open Procreate, this is the screen, obviously, that you're going to be seeing. Mine is going to be a lot different. I have all my drawings here. So we're going to go across the top first and look at all the buttons up here. So if you click on the little plus sign, you have all of the canvases and paper sizes that come automatically with the app. I have added some additional ones so it'll look different. You're going to get your square size paper. You're going to have a regular sheet of paper size, which is 8.5 by 11. And like I said, I have added a few other ones as well. If you go into the plus at the top right corner, this is what comes up. So you can change your paper size by pixels, by inches, centimeters, and millimeters. So we're going to go to inches. Now see your DPI, that's going to be your screen resolution. So the higher the resolution, the more crisp and clear it's going to be in retrospect to your paper size. So I'm just inputting a regular 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper here. So you see, if you change your DPI settings, so if the higher it is, the less amount of layers you're available to use. Standard DPI is usually 350. Now you can also go from here and change the color profile, time-lapse settings, and canvas properties. I honestly don't mess around with those, but you're welcome to play around. And then you just hit create, and there's your paper. Now from here, you can rotate it, have it horizontally, you can have it vertically, it's entirely up to you. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about all of the icons at the top left-hand side of your screen. So the first one that you see is that little wrench is your actions. So we're going to start with adding, which you can insert a file, insert a photo, you can take a photo, add text, which we will get into later, cut, copy, and copy canvas, which is copying your whole screen. So pretty straightforward. Now the next one would be canvas. So you can crop and resize your canvas as I'm showing you here. You can also click on settings up at the top and readjust your DPI settings that we did earlier if you need to adjust those for any reason. And then when you're done, you just hit done and it crops it for you. So going back up, you can get into animation assist, page assist. I don't really play with those. Drawing guide is going to give you your guidelines and you can edit them by clicking on edit drawing guide below. You can change the size of it. You can change the thickness to make thicker lines. You can change the opacity and make it darker and lighter. And then up at the top, you can also change the color of it if you wanted it a different color as well. So from there, once you're done, you're just going to hit done. It wasn't working for me. There we go. Hit done. Next up, you have reference. You can flip your screen horizontally, vertically, etc. So from there, you're going to go to your save or your sharing, which is how you're going to save. So you can save it as a Procreate file, PSD, PDF, JPEG, PNG, etc. You can share the layers individually, so it goes into a lot more detail there as well. Accidentally bumped my camera there. The next tab we're going to look at is video. So Procreate automatically has a time-lapse recording option, so you can turn that on or off there. And you can, if you turn it off, then you have the option to purge it, or you can export the time-lapse video if you want to have it saved for you as well. From there, we're going to look at preferences. So right now I have it on light interface, so you can see how the background is really light, and you can switch that to dark if that's easier on your eyes. That's entirely up to you. For recording purposes, I usually find it's a lot easier on light interface. If you click on right-hand interface like I did there, it moves your buttons to the opposite side of the screen. And again, there's a lot of other things here that I don't really touch or play with. And then the last one, help, of course, there's lots of tips, suggestions, support for you to use there. So that's that tab. So the next one we're going to go to is this little magic wand tool. So these are all these are all options if you are editing photos for the most part. There's a lot of different things in here I haven't used, I'm not sure how to use, but there are a couple things in here that I do use quite frequently. But I will touch base on those a little bit later. So we will leave most of these for right now, and we'll move on to the next. Okay, now I'm going to skip over this next one for a second, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a basic circle just to show you the next couple of things, because you have to have something on your screen for them to work. So we're just going to go ahead and draw a basic circle. I will get in on how to do all of this later. I'm just trying to go over this real quick for the time being. So there we go, have a basic circle. Now, like I said, I'm going to skip over this first tab for right now. We're just going to go to the transformation tool. So this is where you can change the size of it. As you can see how those lines kind of pop up. I have the snapping on, so it'll automatically center it for me or tell me when I'm in the center, which is really handy. But you can turn that off just on the bottom left-hand side there, just like I did, and you can move it to wherever you want. So I just put that back on, just to be able to show you. So the first tab there is freeform. So you can use that and change the size if you don't want it constricted right to that circle shape, and you can alter it like that. And if you want to revert it to the beginning, just hit reset. So it brings you back to your circle. Now, distort is you can change the size of it and kind of play around with it. Like you can see I'm doing it there. It's hard to describe kind of how it's happening, and then warp, you can kind of push it around. I use the warp tool a lot, and I'll show you why later on. But you can kind of push it around and manipulate the shape that way. And then I just hit reset. And then this is where you can also flip it in various directions, rotate, etc. So that's your basic transform tool. Okay, next up, we're going to look at brushes. So there are tons of different brushes that you can purchase. I create a lot of my brushes. I've purchased a lot off of Etsy, and Procreate does come with a ton of brushes. The only suggestion I can make is go through all of them, play around with them, see what they do, see what they look like, change the opacity of them, change the color of them, and kind of get a feel for what you have available to use. I have a folder, as you'll see, called favorites. And that's where I put all of the ones that I use most often, because it's just the easiest for me to find. So you can create your own folder. So see, there's my favorites folder there. So if you want to create your own folder, scroll up to the top and see there's a little plus sign. I'm just going to name this one test just for the purpose of the video. And then if you select on any type of brush, so I'm just going with a basic round brush. It gets used quite often. So you're just going to hold and click and drag and drop it right into that test album. So then when you go there, there's your brush. So it's easy to sort that way. And then if you just click on that, you can just delete it like I did. So there you go. There's your brushes. So the next tab we're going to look at is your smudge tool. So this has all the same brushes that your brush tab has. So you can, so for the, I'm going to show you, so I'm just going to draw a basic outline or a basic circle around what we already have. And I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what you can do with the smudge tool. So I'm just drawing a circle around here, as you can see, in a different color. Okay, so now you can go in with that smudge tool, and again, you can change the different settings. I usually keep it on the airbrush settings. I find that kind of gives it a really soft effect, and you can change the size. And if you just go around like I'm doing here, you can play with the opacity, and it just blends them together. So that's one way that you can blend colors and create like a nice gradient effect. There, that kind of gives you a rough idea there. So the next tool we're going to look at is the erase tool. So again, same as the other two tabs, it has all the same brushes. So you can customize what kind of eraser you want. If you play around with the painting ones, then you can kind of get almost like a chalkboard effect with a couple of them. And you can play around and kind of see what they all do and what kind of effect you get from them. I usually just stick with a round brush. That's probably the most used one. Now the next tab is the one I get asked about the most, is layers. Layers can be very, very complicated and very detailed, and there's so many things that you can do with different layers. My one suggestion is that if there's any changes you plan to make within a painting or within a drawing, I should say, create a new layer for that item. So I get asked a lot when to create layers, when not to create layers. If there's an element that you're adding and you want to change it later on, let's say the color or the size or the location of where it is, put it in a new layer. There's nothing wrong with adding more layers. It just gets more difficult later on to move things around if it's not in a different layer. So I'm going to show you here a few different examples that you can do with different layers. So if we go ahead and we're just going to create another layer, and I'm going to draw another circle for you in a different color. So let's choose a purple, and we're just going to draw another circle just like this. Nothing fancy. Okay, so now because it's in a separate layer, I can move it around on its own without affecting the other circle there. See? Now if we go ahead and we add another layer and we're going to draw another circle, we can do the same thing. We can draw another circle and we can move around and change its color and do things with it without it affecting anything else in the photo. So now we have 3 separate circles, 3 separate layers, and they all work on their own. So now when we're in our layers, we can check this little box here as well on each individual layer, and it'll hide that one so we can work on other layers. So you can click on it and have it hide and reappear there. So that's something that you can do. You can also click and drag each one and change the orientation or arrange them in different orders as well. Now, if you click on this little N there, there's tons of things that you can do. One of the main things I use is you can change the opacity. Honestly, anything other than that, I don't usually use unless I'm editing an actual photograph and changing the colors within it. Otherwise, the only thing I use is the opacity, just as I'm showing you here. So the next thing you're going to do is if you click right on the image itself, there's a whole list of other things that come up. So you have rename, select, copy, pretty straightforward. I'm going to skip a couple here and I'm going to show you a little trick. So if you click on alpha lock and you want to color something, see how the background of that little thumbnail becomes a checkerboard, almost like it's transparent. If you select a different color and you want to change, let's say that circle to a bright pink. So because it's on alpha lock, and now you're going to click on that again and you're going to hit fill layer. It's only going to color whatever is in that layer. But if we go back and undo that and we turn off the alpha lock and we just fill the layer, see how it colors the entire thing. So if you want to only color what's in that layer, make sure you turn that alpha lock on, and then you can color it individually and then just turn it off when you're done. So now I'm going to leave a lot of these other ones for now, and I'm going to get into more detail with those later on. So basically just what I've mentioned is all that we're going to go over for right now. So if you hit merge down, then you can combine them all together, and then they're all in one image, in one layer. Now the last tab we're going to discuss right now is the little color swatch up at the top. So if you click on it, obviously this is all your colors. So you can play around with them, you can get light, dark, you can move your pen or your finger, you can change it side to side. That's where you find all of your colors. And down below, so you can use the disc if that's your preferred method. If you go to harmony, wherever you move this color, you're going to find the opposite of a one that works really well with it. So no matter what, anywhere you're moving it, you're going to have that corresponding color with it as well. So that's kind of neat as well. Now, if you go over to value, this is where you're going to find all of your detail color formulas. I honestly don't play with these very much. The last one is palettes. So Procreate does come with some auto-generated palettes. I've made some of my own. I've also imported them. If you go to the plus sign up at the top here, you can create a new palette. You can take a photo of something and it'll generate the colors from it, or you can import a file or photo. Let's say you purchase one off of Etsy or you download an image from Google. You can import it there and it'll pull all the colors from it and give you a color palette to use there. So that's really handy as well if you're trying to do, let's say, cookie photos or things like that, and you want to have all those colors right handy, then you have them there as well. So that's really handy to use for that. Okay, another really common thing that I get asked is when it comes to drawing circles, shapes, straight lines, things like that. I do not have a steady hand, so this tool and this trick really comes in handy for this. So, I'll show you here in a second, but Procreate has this really cool trick and it will automatically draw it for you, or transform it for you, I guess I should say. So I'll show you here. So we're just going to draw a circle. Now, before you lift up your pen, hold it and see how this little menu pops up at the top. You can automatically select circle and it'll change it for you to an exact circle. Now you can change that around and then there you go. There's your circle. Now, if we undo that, you can do the same thing with a square or a rectangle or a triangle, any shape you want. So you hold it and then that little menu will pop up. Now, I actually have a really hard time actually getting a square on Procreate. I find it to be really finicky. It likes to always give me a rectangle versus a square unless I can get it really accurate to square size. That's where I find the drawing guide actually comes in handy, because you can use that and show the dimensions and the little grid there to help you draw a square, and then it becomes a little bit easier for Procreate to recognize it as well. So another one that I get asked about is drawing a straight line. So I do not have a steady hand whatsoever. My hand gets really shaky. So the same idea, you're just going to draw and you're going to hold it and see how that line corrected itself. It just automatically straightens it, and then you can move it around like I am doing here. So that is a really, really handy tip if you do not have a steady hand, but you want a straight line for something. You just draw and hold it and it will automatically correct it for you. So another trick that I'm going to show you here is if you want a line that's parallel. So if you want it to be horizontally parallel or vertically to the paper. So if you draw and you get that line, tap with your other finger on the screen and it will automatically make it parallel to the page, which is pretty neat. So tap it like that and there you go. There's your straight line. Same if you're doing vertically. Tap with your other hand and it'll straighten it and make it parallel for you. So that's a really neat trick as well for lines. Lines is something I get asked about a lot. Next, we're going to discuss some drawing and coloring tips. So to do that, I'm just going to start by drawing a really basic heart. So I have that in one layer. Now, if you want to make it rounder and kind of fill it out a little bit more, we're going to use the transform tool, and I'm going to use the warp tab, and you can just push and pull the lines a bit like I'm doing here. And you can kind of manipulate it a little bit and make it a little bit rounder and just move it different directions. And then there you go. So I'm pretty happy with that shape. So now we're going to go on to coloring it. So if I select a color here, so let's say we want to go with like a light pink or a really light red type color. So we're going to select our color. Now, if we want to just start coloring, if we have it on the same layer, see what's happening here is it's going over the black line, which can be very tedious and can be very frustrating because obviously it looks really messy. So we're going to not do it that way. I'm going to show you a really good trick. So go and we're going to add a new layer. So click that little plus sign. Okay, now you want to click and drag this layer underneath of the black outline that you have. So click on your first layer and you're going to hit reference, almost near the bottom there, third from the bottom. See now how it says reference. Now go back to your second layer there. Okay, so now whenever we color, it's not going to interfere with that black line. It's not going to touch it. So everything you see isn't going to interfere with that. So you can color it in like that, or I'm going to show you another trick here. If you click and drop the color or click and drag, you can drop it right in and there you go. It fills it in automatically for you. Now, if you go up and let's say you have a little space that you forgot to color in. So let's erase a little section. Let's say I drew the heart and I didn't connect the lines entirely. Now, if you go and try to do the color drop and color that in, it's not going to stick to that heart shape because of that little missing section. So make sure you have all of your lines connected before you do that, or else it won't work properly. Now, let's say we want to change the color of our heart. So we started with that really light pink color. So let's say we want to change it to a darker color. So there's our light pink. So I'm going to put it on the different layer like I did. So we're going to go and we're going to switch and you want a different color. Just click and drag. Just click and drop and it'll change the color for you. So now we have a red heart. So the next thing that I get asked about a lot is shading and creating an image that's a little bit more three-dimensional. So I'm going to show you how the easiest way to do that. So you're going to make a new layer. So you want this on top of your colored layer and we're going to pick a darker color. And you want to outline all the way around the shape or the image. Now, don't worry that it's going over. We're going to fix all of that, I promise. So you have your dark outline. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the second tab, the little magic wand tab, and you're going to click on it and you're going to click on Gaussian blur. Okay, so this tab right here, and all you're going to do is drag your finger or drag the pen across the screen. And now you can kind of see that dark line is starting to fade and it's starting to blur out. See, and now it's becoming a lot softer and you can drag it and make it more intense or soft or harder lines. And then once you're happy with that, you're just going to deselect it. Now, if we go up here and see how that's an individual layer like we did, if you click on that image and you're going to hit clipping mask. When you hit clipping mask, it attaches itself to whatever image is directly underneath of it. So if you hit clipping mask, now that outline we did is attached to that heart shape and you can see the rounded blurred edges, which is exactly what we want. So clipping mask and it attaches itself to that image and then we can hit merge down and it combines them together. Now we're going to use the same technique to create a little bit of highlight in the middle of the heart just to give it some more depth to it. So we have the darker edge and now we just want a little bit lighter in the middle. So we're going to hit the same tool and the same blending style and we're just going to click and drag, and sometimes you need a little bit more and that's okay. And now you have it lighter in the center and you just deselect and then merge those down and there you go. There's your three-dimensional looking heart. So make sure you have the separate layer as I'm showing you here. If you don't have a separate layer, then you're going to blur your whole image, which you don't want. So once you're happy with that, you can merge everything down, and there's your one image that you have just made. And there you go. So that is it for our basics tutorial. I hope you have learned something or you find this useful. If you have any suggestions, any comments, any questions, or any tips or tricks that you would like to see me record in the future, please comment below and I will do my very best to help or answer them in any way I can.